Good evening, my fellow Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. And it is the big one. It is the North London Derby at our place, the Coliseum of football in London, and I cannot wait for it. And it's also that time of year again, in the words of Gary Neville, time for the Tottenham fan base to turn up and brutalise that Arsenal team once more. And there's no hiding place. It is all on the line. Tottenham's top four aspirations versus Arsenal's title aspirations. But most importantly, pride and bragging rights. I'd also argue that this is Ange Postecoglou's biggest selection of the season. If he gets it right and we win, all is forgiven and everyone will stop questioning the guy and give him a chance heading into next season. If we lose, with the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City all coming up, there will be so much more scrutiny on Ange Postecoglou. So it's a big one for him also. So let's get into it. On the lineup that I think Ange Postecoglou will select to take home all 3 points and give us Tottenham fans the bragging rights. In goal, Guglielmo Vicario retains his place between the sticks, and this is a huge opportunity to prove to Tottenham fans and the rest of the world that the club made the right decision in signing him over his opposite number, David Raya. One thing as well is Arsenal are very potent from corner kicks, especially attacking corner kicks. They're very good at them. I believe they're up there with the most goals from them this season. So Vicario will have to be alert, be aware of this heading into the game and not get pinned on his line by an opposition player, and be alert and make sure he's free to come and claim that ball and help out that back line. And if we ever needed Vicario to step up with some of them big saves that he's made throughout the season and keep a clean sheet, now is the time. So let's go, Vicario. At right back, Pedro Porro will retain his place. Of course, he did go off injured against Newcastle, but he has had 2 weeks to get himself fit and ready for this North London Derby, and Ange Postecoglou has declared him fit. I don't think he would have done that if there was any worries about his fitness. However, from the Tottenham fans, I can understand where the questions come in. How fit is he? Now, Pedro Porro has a huge game on his hands. First and foremost, defensively, whoever starts that side, whether it's who has scored a few goals for Arsenal this season, but also a few goals for Brighton against Tottenham. So he will have to stay switched on defensively. But going forward, he's going to have huge responsibility with Destiny Udogie missing the other side. Whoever comes in is not going to offer the same attacking output, the same attacking threat that Udogie offers over that side. So Pedro Porro is going to have to pick up that burden, and he will have a huge into this one, both defensively and going forward. But one thing is, we know that Postman Porro is capable. He is capable of delivering that killer pass. He's capable of delivering that swung song cross, but also he is capable of scoring goals as well. And he will really have to double down going forward, especially with Udogie missing the other side. At right side is centre-back, no question here, is the Argentinian assassin. And we know what to expect from him now. He's going to be that sort of combative presence in that back line. However, that did boil over in the last big derby we had against Chelsea, that if we would have won, could have given us sort of a different momentum and maybe a different outcome this season. But of course, that passion sort of boiled over and it ended up hindering us on the night. It ended up having a detrimental impact in terms of the result. So here, what I want to see from Romero is maturity, show a bit more composure, and actually lead that defensive line in the right way and lead it to a clean sheet. At left-sided centre-back, Mickey Ice Cold van der Ven does retain his place after the horror show at St James's Park a fortnight ago. Now, the early yellow card really did have an impact on the rest of his performance. He couldn't get touch tight to Isaac, and he couldn't really make a challenge for the duration of the game, and Isaac ended up capitalising on that, in fairness to the guy. And it was a shame, really, because Van der Ven was just coming in for the credit and the praise that he actually deserved, and the performance came at the wrong time. However, I do back Van der Ven to maybe eradicate the nightmare that he had at St James's Park a fortnight ago and turn up and help this defensive line to a clean sheet. Of course, he's going to be very important mopping up everything in behind, especially the likes of Saka, you know, when they look to play him in behind and stuff like that. And the reason why it's crucial for Van der Ven not to pick up an early yellow is because when he is that last line of defense, the guy that sort of, you know, allows us to play the high line because of the pace of him, 9 times out of 10, a lot of them tackles are last-ditch tackles. There, he has to get them absolutely spot on, but he can't take that risk if he's on an early yellow. So it's important that he avoids an early booking here in this game. At left back, I know there's a bit of controversy going on here. Of course, Udogie out for the rest of the season with his quadriceps injury that he's got going on. And it's a shame, really, because I really do like Adoge. I think he offers a lot to this team, especially going forward and defensively. But what I would say is defensively down that left-hand side, for a lot of this season, he's had it locked up and he's been solid. But in recent times, teams have got a lot of joy down there, a lot more than what we're used to seeing. Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and Newcastle all got a lot of joy down that side and scored a couple of the goals from down that side. So maybe a little change in here. Someone who maybe isn't as adventurous going forward, but is maybe a little bit more defensive minded, and maybe will give Tottenham a little bit more solidity down that side, especially with Saka coming down that side. So do you go with Ben Davies? Do you go with Emerson Royale? Now, it's interesting because Ben Davies has played a couple of times at left back this season, but I'd argue it hasn't been his best performance. His best performances have come as a left-sided centre-back. The times he has played there, I felt like Van de Ven has spent most of the night sort of covering his ass and doubling up on duties, whereas Emerson has filled in there this season and he's been defensively solid, but you do lose a little bit going forward. But for me, it's who's going to defend Saka the most. Now, with Ben Davies, I understand the argument. He knows exactly what a North London derby brings, and on his day, he can put in a decent performance. However, for me, I think it's a huge risk. The guy hasn't really been a left back since Jose Mourinho dropped him for Sergio Reguilon all them years ago. He just doesn't have the legs or the pace. And at times, sometimes in this system, when I've seen him, he doesn't know whether to press or whether to sit back in. Sometimes he gets caught in no man's land. But the biggest thing for me is with Saka, I don't want someone that will drop off and give the guy 10 yards of space, because it gives him the option to go beat you on the outside, beat you on the inside, put in a cross, get a shot off. I want someone that's going to get touch tight to Saka, sort of manhandle him. He doesn't really like that physicality. And for me, Emerson Royale will be that guy. With Ben Davies, he likes to drop off and sort of try and read where the defender's going. And I think he gives them too much time, especially in these big games. He'll get found out because all these players need is a split second. I think Emerson Royale will come in, get touch tight to him, and hopefully eliminate that threat down that side. But don't get me wrong, you do lose a bit going forward, but maybe in this game, it might not be such a bad thing. Another contentious point is who starts in the CDM role, that number 6 role. Bissouma, Højbjerg, Bentancur. And I understand arguments for every single one of them. However, I am going to defend Bissouma a little bit here. I think it's getting to the point where we're actually scapegoating him for a lot of Tottenham's problems in terms of conceding goals. It was the same when Højbjerg was in that position, and now people are screaming for Højbjerg to come back in. But when you actually look at the statistics, the teams have had a lot more joy down the right-hand side and the left-hand side than they have actually through the middle. So to a certain degree, Bissouma does do his job. Now, don't get me wrong, Bissouma does have some problems in terms of, sometimes he can be a bit lazy on the track back and stuff like that. Sometimes he can be caught on the ball. But at the end of the day, the player here is asked to take risks. And I'm not saying Bissouma is the perfect player, but for me, I think he'll offer us a lot of what we need in this position that maybe a Bentancur and Højbjerg do not give us. We have to remember, Arsenal might come and press us a bit like what Newcastle done. And if they get no joy, then retreat and sit back and not really play a high line. But they might look to get pressure on us. And Bissouma, for me, I think he's got a lot of the attributes that we need to be able to play out through that. So I'm going to stick with Yves Bissouma here, and I think Ange Postecoglou might as well. But if Postecoglou is putting faith in him, he has to repay that. It's a huge game. I remember last time at the Emirates, if I remember correctly, I think Declan Rice was involved in the first half and Bissouma was sort of quiet, but then he came off and Bissouma almost ran the shop in the second half. He's not going to have that luxury here. Declan Rice probably played a full 90 minutes, but it's up to Bissouma now to put in a worldy performance, and hopefully he's been saving it for this weekend. To the right side of the midfield tree, and I am going to bring back in Pape Sarr and restore him to the starting lineup. And the reason being, Pape Sarr hasn't been available or has been on the bench for 12 games this season. And basically 12 games that he hasn't started in, Tottenham have dropped points in 8 of them. And that shows how crucial Pape Sarr is to this midfield. When you take him out, you lose that combativeness. And that's where I think maybe Postecoglou went a little bit wrong against Newcastle. In these games, sometimes, especially against the better teams, you have to earn the right to play in the opposition half. And I think we almost forget about that sometimes. And we lose that when we don't have Pape Sarr. The amount of ground he covers, the amount of ball he turns over. It may not be pretty on the eye what he does, but it's very effective, and every team needs a player like that. And I have no doubt that a lot of the attacking players in that dressing room really appreciate the sweeping up job that he does behind them. So I think it's absolutely crucial, as statistics show. when he plays, Tottenham have a better chance of winning. And on to the left side of midfield, and the guy tasked with bringing all the creativity to the team. Now, my personal preference would be to drop James Maddison because of recent form and bring in Rodrigo Bentancur, who I would argue has been a little bit more creative than what Maddison has been in recent weeks. However, I do expect Postecoglou to stick with James Maddison. Now, James Maddison, for me, rather than actually embrace the responsibilities that come with leading that attacking line in terms of creativity, I think he's actually crumbling under the pressure a little bit, and he's nowhere near the player that he was earlier on in the season. Now, for me, I do think part of that does have to do with the forward line, how clinical they are, how stale that's become. It doesn't help him, but I don't think he takes on enough responsibility. When you look at Luka Modric when he used to play that role for Tottenham, Christian Eriksen, even Harry Kane over the last few years, they get turned, they start spraying balls around, and they're brave. They make things happen. They're proactive. Maddison is sort of playing within himself now. He's sort of passing on the responsibility to others. I want to see him stand up and take the responsibility in this game. If he turns up in a North London derby, from the Spurs fans' point of view, everything will be forgiven in recent weeks. Now, in the reverse fixture at the Emirates last time out, he did produce 2 assists for Sonny. So I'm hoping that he has saved, or he's bottled it up, and he is going to unleash in this game and hopefully conduct this team to victory. But with all great attacking midfielders, they almost make the players make the run. Right now, I don't think he does that, and I don't think he gives confidence to that forward line. So hopefully a dramatically improved performance from James here. Now, moving into the front line, and I do think there needs to be changes here. I think it's become very, very stale, and I don't think it's potent enough. I think we sort of have to score a similar goal every single time, and we do have options back. Richarlison is back fit. Kulusevski, what frame of mind is he in sort of after having his child recently? And congratulations to him, by the way. Will Postecoglou start with him? Has his attention been on the game, or has his focus been elsewhere? But 3 of Newcastle's goals out of the 4 did come from that forward line, losing the ball, not being able to hold it up and make it stick up front. It's also happened against Luton, and it's happened in other games recently. And the reality is, when you're coming up against the better teams, especially like Newcastle, first and foremost, you need players that, again, earn the right, can hold the ball up and make it stick. Play with their back to goal. That's first and foremost. With Johnson, Son, and Werner, every single one of them want to sit on the shoulder of the last defender and look to make them runs in behind. But in reality, we don't have that player in the midfield or in a deeper position that can spray them balls around the place that would bring them into effect nice and early the way we need them to. So I think there has to be changes here. In this North London derby, it's going to be physical, especially the opening exchanges. And in them open exchanges, what you need is players that can hold the ball up and make it stick up front and relieve that pressure on you. So I am going to make a few changes here, and we will start with right wing. And I am going to bring in Dejan Kulusevski. Now, I know he was slowing down a lot of attacks, and maybe he wasn't producing the output that many people wanted. But when you look at Kulusevski off the right and Son off the left this season, many people are making the argument, but the stats are nowhere near the same. Is that because we don't have someone of Harry Kane's standards up front that also help boost their stats? I would make that argument. Now, with Richarlison, I think he's done a great job, but he's been injured an awful lot. So I do think it will have an effect on Kulusevski numbers in that regard. But one thing he does really well is his combat of he can hold up the ball, but not only that, he's an excellent ball carrier, and he can get you up into the opposition half. Rather than have to make 15, 20 passes to do it, he can do it single-handedly. And for me, I think we missed that. That guy that could pick up the ball and burst through the middle, blow a couple of bodies off him, and, make things happen. So for me, I think it's very important that Kulusevski comes in here as well. Off the back of Johnson, we needed an out ball against Newcastle, and he was caught napping on the halfway line, expecting Vicario to pump it in over the fullback's head from the 6-yard box. He needs to be switched on at times and look to come short. And I just think in a North London derby, you cannot take that risk. Will he be switched on? Will he be raring to go? Will he not? And the fact that it's going to be very combative in the open exchanges, I would make the argument that Johnson will be better served later on in the game and make an impact off the bench, the same as Bentancur, the same as Timo Werner later on in the game. Go at Arsenal again, because we have to remember we haven't played in 15 days. They played 3 games since our last game heading into this North London derby, so there will be leggy come the end of the game. So for me, I would save Johnson for that purpose. Now, moving out to left wing. And I know some guys are going to turn off straight away because they might not like what they say. All I would say is hear me out. Now, of course, Son scored 2 goals at the Emirates last time against Arsenal, playing down the middle. And don't get me wrong, Son is a lethal finisher. He is our best finisher. But one thing that he fundamentally misses when he's playing up front, and you can see it frustrates him as well because he's constantly looking to drop deep and turn and get on the ball rather than be that vocal point and play with his back to goal. He just simply cannot play with his back to goal. It's his weakness and it's being exposed. And at this moment in time, because he's not scoring a lot of goals right now either, it's actually hurting Tottenham more than it is helping them. And what I mean by that is he lost possession twice against Newcastle. They turned it on us when and scored. Once against Luton as well. This can't keep happening. We need to get someone back up front that can play with their back to goal, but also get someone back into a position where he can run at players, which is what he wants to do. He wants to run at them and scan the pitch and get in a position where he can see everything in front of him rather than playing with his back to goal. Also, lastly, Werner, the last few weeks, the best chances of the game have fallen to him coming in off that left-hand side. But we know that guy cannot finish his dinner. We know Son is absolutely lethal. And if them chances can fall to Sonny, then they're in the back of the net. Lastly, having Kulu on the right and Son off the left is getting back to the similar front three that we had in the first 10 games of the season. And for me, I think this will help the likes of Maddison as well, having different vocal points and different pieces of the puzzle to go to, rather than just having Johnson and Werner who want to do the same thing. So that's why I have moved Son back out to the left, and hopefully Postecoglou makes the change to the forward line, and Son can have an amazing impact off that left-hand side in this game. Our captain, we need him, and we need him to drive us to victory. And up front, it is the return of Richarlison. Now, despite him only playing 26 minutes since March, I do think Tottenham Hotspur have really missed him to a certain degree. We miss him being able to hold up the ball, bring others into play, but also have a different vocal point up front, someone that you can put crosses into, someone that you can play off knowing that he can hold up the ball. And for me, I think he brings that little bit of a different of a vocal point. He scraps for absolutely everything. He works insanely hard out of possession. But one thing that we've missed in recent weeks with Son getting frustrated up front is Son is dropping out an awful lot. That when the crosses do come in, he's not there to get on the end of them. Richarlison will sniff out that opportunity. And most importantly, I think it's important that we get our two top goal scorers this season into the team. Son has fantastic numbers this season, but I don't think Richarlison gets enough credit either. He's got 10 goals, 3 assists in the Premier League so far this season. I think he's 3 goals off his highest ever scoring finish in the Premier League. And also, let's not forget that Postecoglou did say he missed that the Newcastle trip to be ready for the North London derby. And I do hope that Postecoglou selects Richarlison and brings him back in, because I think we look so much better with him as the vocal point and Son off the left and whoever off the right running off him. I think we're a lot more creative, and I think we have different solutions to different problems that we may face. And I just think it's our most fluid. Although it's not absolutely clinical, I 100% agree with anyone that makes that argument. But to what we've got, I do think it looks like our most fluid, and I think it's our most effective. And getting back to a similar front line that we had in the first 10 games of the season, I think is important. So hopefully Postecoglou makes this choice. But guys, this is my predicted lineup. Please give me your predicted lineup in the comment section below. Also, let me know how you're feeling heading into this North London derby, along with your score prediction. But this is the big one. This is the North London derby. We need 3 points. With some of the big games we've got coming up, we really do have to win this to take a bit of pressure off us, but also ease pressure on the club in general and Ange Postecoglou. Hopefully we come out with all 3 points and we can rejoice in victory. I will be there if anyone wants to meet me. Just drop me a message on one of my socials and I'll let you know where I am. That'll be absolutely fantastic. And to those who I don't see over the weekend, make sure you enjoy yourselves, and especially if we win, make sure you enjoy the victory. Guys, go and have a good one. Come on, you Spurs. In the mighty Ange we trust. We never stop. And Dave will be in that number.